Evening, everyone. I'm Siwa Clofas is my name. I'm presenting about a project report. The project has been about making a traffic monitoring tool using deep learning as a computer vision task. To begin with, I will take you through the contents of this presentation. There is a part for introduction, related work, a methodology used in this project, dataset description. I'll have to go through the data processing techniques implemented. Shall have to look at the models deployed, and then we shall look at their evaluation, and then we shall have to talk about the results from the model evaluation, and then we shall have our conclusion as we get done. To begin with, of recent, we have got various applications of computer vision, and among them we have object detection techniques that have been used in various cities to detect traffic, to detect different occurrences that are happening, where we have to go to get the data set captured by the cameras, and then we analyze it to get exactly what we wanted to detect. So in this activity, we also went through a number of tasks involving getting a data set that was captured from around the Nakawa area. And then we went through the activities involved with getting the image frames from the video, and then the processing of those images until we got the labeled images that I finally used in the with the deep learning models to classify and detect the objects that we captured. For this work, we went through a series of having to look at a previous research done in this area, and I had to look at a number of previous studies done on the models I intended to implement. That is the YOLO, the ResNet 50, the VGG16, and the ImageNet. And among the many related literature that I had to look at, a few of them are listed here. We looked at YOLO as a method of object detection that reframes the challenge as regression problem with the goal of forecasting geographically separated bounding boxes and class capabilities associated with them. We also looked at studies about the ResNet 50, where we saw that it offers varying depth, achieving better performances with deep learning architectures. We also looked at previous research done with the VGG16, where we realized that for techniques like pruning and quantization can reduce the model size and improve its efficiency. Those are the few of the related research studies that we have looked at in this work. The methodology employed in this project, of course, I had to obtain the video file that was obtained from the URL provided by Doctor, and then this video file was used to obtain image frames. So on these image frames, a number of activities were done, and these activities were all aimed at having a better quality and resizable image frames that could easily be worked with. That could be also had something to do with the computer resources that were available. So we had to look at resizing the frames, and then I went through the process for contrast adjustment, histogram equalization, normalization, and then I had to select the unique frames. Since I had very many frames that had been extracted from the video file, I wanted to concentrate on those frames that are unique. Like I only get those frames that are not looking like the other frames that I have already, so that I can easily deal with different frames. And then after doing all those activities on these frames, I went through a process of trying to have annotation of the images. In this process, I used the Anaconda prompt, and then with the label IMG facility. I didn't get to use CVAT, given its requirements for subscription and so on. I had to look for other means of getting the job done. So I employed Anaconda prompt, and then the label IMG, where I had to have my bounding boxes on the images, and then I saved the XML files, which XML files I used later to get the CSV file. I extracted actually a CSV file from that, and but I also used those XML files to get the images by mapping them to the actual frames where I extracted them, so that I could get the image itself that I was interested in, as in the size of the bounding boxes. So that's what basically I did. Then after that, I went through the process of trying to label them, and then come up with the data set, which I used to train the model. So the models I trained successfully, I had the ResNet 50, VGG16, and then the MobileNet. I also tried a YOLO model, but given the method I used for getting the dataset, I couldn't get a direct dataset that would work well with the YOLO model, but I tried getting it done. So after training my models, the models were evaluated using a number of metrics or matrices, including accuracy, F1 score, precision, confusion matrix, and then the area under the curve. And then after we had a discussion involving the results, and then the way forward. So about the data set description, as I have already described already, it was a video file extracted from Nakawa, or recorded from actually extracted from the URL that was provided, which was it was also recorded from Nakawa Road. And then back to the data preprocessing, as I've already mentioned in the methodology explanation, the extraction of frames was done from the video, then annotated, then the frames were resized. But for me, here resizing was done before annotation was also done. Later, it was also done after the labeled images were extracted. I also did the normalization and standardization. We also did the augmentation using techniques for rotating, flipping, and brightness adjustment, or contrast adjustment. I also had to extract the data set from the files I had used through the adaptation process. I did some EDA on the data set I had, and I wanted to interest in myself with how many classes did I get, and how many images did I have, how are they distributed according to their aspect ratios, and so on. So I realized after the whole process was done, I realized I had labeled around 16,000 taxi vehicles. I had around over 1,000 motorcycles. I had over also 1,000 private cars. Those are small cars. That's what I had tried to get. And then I had around over 600 truck cars, and then I had over 500 buses that were annotated. But then later I realized I had to deal with only 3 classes. So with training models, I only dealt with the taxis, motorcycles, and then the trucks, the cargo trucks. I left out bus and private vehicles. Then I also interested myself in knowing the distribution of bounding box aspect ratios, and I realized that over 1,400 bounding boxes and images obtained had 0.8 aspect ratios, and then very few of them had over 1.2 aspect ratio, and then we have a majority of them lying between 1 to 0.2. I'm also interested myself with knowing where exactly my bounding boxes were placed, where my images were captured from the image frames that I had, and I realized that the sides or the corners, the top left corner and the bottom right corners actually had close to 0 images captured or bounding boxes captured from there. I also wanted to know the height and the width for my bounding boxes, and I realized that majority of the bounding boxes had their width from 20 to 60, and then very few of them had around 100, and then for the height we still had majority lying between 80 to 20, but just a few of them beyond 120 as in height measure. Implemented deployed models like already mentioned, ResNet 50, VGG16, MobileNet, and then the yellow. But we also implemented some transfer learning in the models that are implemented simply to make them try to learn and converge better. And we also had that I had that train test split of 80% and 20, 80 for training, and then for testing 20%. And then these models, like I already said, were evaluated using accuracy, precision, recall, F1 score, and the area under curve. On the evaluation part of this project, like I said, I used a number of metrics, but here I'm concentrating on accuracy score. And according to this illustration, you realize that my ResNet 50 was doing well for training. It was learning very well, but it was struggling to capture the features with validation on the unknown set of the data. So we can realize that on training, actually, so we had over 90 for most of the epochs that we were running, but then we have validation accuracy metric running to 90 and over 90 for some instances, but again dropping as low as below 50 for some other epochs. So the model was simply struggling to validate on the unseen data. And then on the next model, we tried some techniques to make sure that the models are not overfitting, and again, the models can converge better. And we leveraged transfer learning on VGG16. And then we realized that at the beginning, the model had started with very bad performance on basically actually even the training and the testing. You can realize variation. You can realize that at some point on some epoch we had on around the 10th epochs we had validation low, but as the training continued, as epochs went on, validation also improved and almost uniformly settled on over 95% accuracy, as well as having accuracy for training that was uniformly above 97. At some point, we had almost got 100%. For our conclusion, we realized that actually deep learning models can give an ideal technique for object detection. And then we realized also through the process, I realized that for deep learning models to do well and for them to learn and converge very well, you have to be mindful about the processes you go through to extract and obtain your data set. For our case, I would say it was a learning experience. The data set preparation that I used could not work actually for well, it could not work well. Maybe there is another method what you learn later, but my method I got it did not work well on IOLO model, because I had to have prepared the data set for parts for, I had a set for training, I had a set for testing, then a set for evaluation, and I should have saved the files on YML in YML formats, which I didn't really get to do with my label IMG with the Anaconda prompter, which I tried to use to annotate my images. But for the rest of the models, I tried to, they worked. So overall validation technique, validation metrics were showing relatively lower accuracy as to be seen on the notebooks, as to be identified in my notebooks. Thank you very much.